Hello, this video is for APA 7th edition student. It's presented by the Casper College Writing Center, and we're just going to go through the basics of APA. So hold on and we'll get started. So the first thing we want to review is why do we use APA Style Guide? For the most part, it's because we are trying to use the formats that they require for professionals to publish in whenever they're sending their work out to journals. Another reason is because it's very important in our culture and our society to give credit to the people who have had these original thoughts or research. And also to avoid accusations of plagiarism is kind of the main reason you're probably using this, I guess, as a student. As a note for this is what you must cite in APA is quotes, summaries, and paraphrases. And we're going to go through the how-to of that in just a moment. So first we'll cover the basic format of an APA paper. We'll cover the cover page, what the body pages are going to look like, and how the reference page is formatted. So the cover pages first. As you can see up here in the top right corner, we have our page number, and yes, that does appear even on the cover page. Our first major element is the title, and for APA 7 they do ask for that title to be bold and it to have a little bit additional separation between it and the rest of the information on the page. The next is your name. After that is your affiliation. So for you, it's going to be Casper College or University of Wyoming. They also ask that you put in your department here. So if you're doing a paper for the Department of Psychology, you'd put Department of Psychology, comma, Casper College. After that goes your class number. So that'd be your English 1010 and your section number 01, 02, N2, whatever it is that you take. After that is your teacher's name, so you'd put their whole name there. I just gave a simple example of Doctor Who. After that is the date that you have turned the paper in, or kind of like a publication date. So that's what your title page is going to look like. So the body format is going to be pretty simple. You'll have your 8.5 by 11 paper size, 1-inch margins. You'll start with the title bold and centered at the top of your page. All text will be double-spaced, 12-inch font, most likely New Times Roman. The first line of each paragraph is indented. Article titles are in quotations, journal titles are in italics. You'll use past tense and third person. So for those of you who might not be familiar with the idea of what person I'm talking about is first person is using I, second person is using you, third person is using they, their, them. So in your APA articles that you're writing, you're going to want to write in the third person unless it has been you who has specifically conducted the experiment and you're talking about what you personally did. Otherwise, all third person. On the reference page, it gets its own page. So when you're done writing the rest of your body, you're going to start a brand new page for your references. It's also going to be double spaced. So references will be your title at the top of the page. It will be centered and bold. Your references that you list will be in alphabetical order by author. If there is no author, then you use whatever is in the author's place for that reference to order it in alphabetical order. Numbers and symbols would be ordered at the top. Use the hanging indent for each reference listed, and that's something that I'll show you later on in the presentation if you're not familiar. only put references in your reference list if they have been cited in your paper and vice versa. You do not, under any circumstance, want to have extra references in your reference list but not cited in your paper, because it implies to your teacher that you have used references that you haven't cited, which can then turn into a claim of plagiarism. So make sure that anything that is in your paper and cited turns up on your reference page, and anything in your reference page is also on your paper. In-text citation is what we'll go over next. In-text citations are required in your paper for when you're doing anything that is a summary, a quotation, or a paraphrase. We're going to go over the required parts of the in-text citation and what that looks like whenever you're doing it as a narrative citation versus a parenthetical citation. So the required parts, your first required part is your author. Your author is whoever was in charge of creating the content of that work, and it can be a person, a corporation, a web host, the person who's claiming ownership, the copyright person of that work. The publication year is going to be the year that that content was published, whether it was posted on a web page or, physically published to a journal or a book. That's what you want. Page number is where in the content that you found what you're referencing. So in some cases, like a web page, you're not going to have a page number, and that's okay. But if you have a book or an online journal that keeps the pagination that was published in the original journal, then you do want to cite that page number. So narrative citations are one of two ways that you can cite information in APA. Narrative citation is when you are using elements that we just talked about for the citation within your writing. So what that might look like is Smith in 2019 stated information page 89. So as you can see in this example, we have all three elements. We have Smith as the author, we have the date right after the name, which is 2019, and then we have the page number coming at the end. Another example would be, in a recent study, Smith, 2019 indicated that page 89. So as you can see, it's still kind of broken up, the citation, but it's there surrounding the stuff that it is concerned with. And that's kind of what's most important, is making sure that a reader can identify what part of your text is associated to what author or reference that's in your reference list. So notice here that each element is included, like we said, and it has minimal interruptive qualities to your overall narrative of your writing. So the next is parenthetical citations. When you use a parenthetical citation, that means it's all of those elements together in parentheses at the end of the borrowed material or paraphrased material that you're using. So example, the research completed in the study did not reach any viable conclusions, parentheses, Smith, 1997, page 25, parentheses, period. So that section right here is your parenthetical citation. And we have another example. The authors of both articles agree that 9 out of 10 women do not like having their toes stubbed. And here I gave you an example of what it looks like if you have two references that contributed to one sentence. So we have Smith, 1997, page 34, semicolon, Doe, 1876, page 2. So that's what it would look like if you have two separate sources that contributed to like one sentence. So you might have gotten information about stubbed toes and women from one spot, and then the 9 out of 10 from another spot, and you put it together to create this sentence. Another example is later, the psychological effects are magnified by repeated trauma and victims are more likely to suffer long-term mental illness, Martin et al., 2019. So this is an example where you have more than 3 authors that are in the reference, and you're allowed to use this phrase called et al. To indicate that there is Martin and more. And that's what you put in your in-text citation, and then you do comma date. And notice in this one I did not have a page number. That could mean that it's a web source and it wasn't paginated, and that's fine. That's still a valid citation. If you have a page number available though, you must use it in your citation. So next we're going to talk about the reference list. We're going to go through the required parts that APA has for references and show a few examples so you give kind of an idea of what they look like. And then, let's see. So the required parts. The first required part is the author. So this is the person or persons or corporation who created the work. The next is the date, the year of publication, usually the year, but sometimes it can be a full date. The title, this is the title of the article, the title of the book, the title of the web page, the title of the blog post, the title of the work. Next is the source. So that kind of is a vague term, so it would expand into what the journal was, what the overall web page was, or whatever place that your article was found inside of. So if it's like an anthology, your title would be the title of that chapter of an anthology, and then the source would be the name of the anthology and the page numbers and things like that. So source would include like a web page URL and page numbers and all of that data. So what that looks like. If you bring up an article, we'll just point out where these things can be found. So this is just kind of an example, but the journal name is the Journal of Psychiatric Research. The issue number is 114. The date of publication is up here as 2019. The page range for the article from where it was originally published, even though it's online, is located right here, that 161 through 169. Here we have the article title, and it's pretty long, but right here is the article title. And then we have the list of authors. And that's kind of how you would break down where you get your citation information from. So the only thing that you'd probably need in addition to this is way at the top is kind of the URL of that file, and you'd want to add that to your citation if you got it online. So here's an example for a journal article. Here we have 2 authors listed, and you'll notice that we use the first initial and middle initial of the author's name and their last name. And we do not put their full first name. Even if the full first name is listed on the article, you shorten it to the first initial. If they don't have the middle initial, then you leave that out. But it's always going to be last name, comma, first initial, period. When you have more than one author in APA, in this example we have 2, instead of using the word and, you use the ampersand symbol, which is right here, to indicate that there's 2 authors. So we have our 2 authors listed, and then after that comes our date. Our date is going to be in parentheses. There'll always be a period in between your main elements, so there'll be a period after the author, a period after the date, a period after the article title, and then you don't have a period at the very, very end, but you have a period in between all those spots. So the next part is our article title. What you'll notice is that the article title only has the first letter of the title capitalized, except for after the colon, and that's called sentence capitalization. Is what is required for article titles in APA